Hey everyone, this is Tinka welcoming you to yet another Marvel Strike Force War Wednesday. Today's War Wednesday is against Brazucas, and this is actually an old war that I've had in the tank for quite some time. This is previous to a bunch of reworks, and we'll see that in the very beginning battle with Namor Factor versus Marauders. This is before Madeline Pryor was even on the map for any one of the players, and this was before the Sabretooth rework for Weapon X. At this point, X Factor was a beautiful counter because you could get Multiple Man to run his special, which dropped 2 dupes with Taunt, and by that time, Mr. Sinister would clone a dupe, which was a complete and utter waste. The X Factor other 3, which is Longshot, Shatterstar, and Polaris, would clean up. It almost didn't matter who your 5th was. I ran Namor with them because of his ultimate, which had a turn meter rewind in war offense specifically. So back in the day, this was a pretty easy battle, and it was almost autoable as far as a counter. The reason you couldn't is you would want to use both of the Dad Bros specials first. But as long as you knew that, they would be able to take care of everything for you. Polaris's ult on her first turn would put Disrupt up, which would hopefully get rid of any taunts from Strife. And if you did it fast enough and got through Emma, then it really wouldn't matter because she wouldn't be able to cleanse a whole bunch of stuff or strip away your defense ups that Shatterstar would put up on his ultimate on his second turn. In any case, enjoy this blast from the past, and we'll catch you in the next battle. Alright, next up we've got Infinity Watch versus Heroes for Hire. For people who have watched this channel since I first launched War Wednesdays, this will look very familiar to you. This was, again, before the Weapon X team, before the Dark Hunters team, before there were a handful of options against a full Heroes for Hire. All we had was Infinity Watch, and we didn't have a whole lot of choice as to how to take it on. At one point, one of the things we had to really worry about was timeouts, and so you would actually use the auto function in hopes of getting enough attacks in to wear through all of those charges and all of those heals. So that's what this is. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the old school Heroes for Hire counter. Next up, we've got Skilletary versus Mechs. Skilletary was never good. They were intended to be a mercenary counter from the very beginning, but when they came out, they really flopped, and the original team included Killmonger instead of Black Widow. Obviously, he's still a skilled military character, so he can slide right in, but this team really didn't do anything offensively from the very beginning of their creation, and ended up needing a rework with some extra buffs, and also the addition of the military tag to Black Widow to allow her to become part of the team. Once she became part of the team, this team actually became worth something. In any case, in a 100k punch down scenario at these power levels, the Skilletary team cleans up rather quickly. If you're running this team now, you're going to want to make sure you're using Black Widow instead of Killmonger, and a punch across is highly likely. Next up, we've got XForce versus Doc Ock Sinister 6. XForce is all about speed, especially early on. If you can get any of the tunes in your opposing team down into yellow, then you'll have X23 go with her first turn, and she should be able to knock out somebody, especially if she's one of the more powerful tunes on the team. XForce for a hot minute was one of the best offensive teams, and now they've faded into almost complete obscurity. So they really either need a rework or they need some help, because there's really not a whole lot left for them to do. I would not recommend this on a punch across at a high level, because Dr. Octopus is way, way, way too strong, especially if he's a healer ISO, and even more especially if he is a blue level healer ISO. You just can't take him out, and you can't stay fast enough to get rid of him. As for this battle, this was a large punch down, and that's why it worked. Doc Ock wasn't gigantic. I had multiple tunes that had more power level than he did, and so kind of focused down on him. It's also possible that at these power levels you could clean up the rest of the team first and then finish with Doc Ock. Either one will work. But do not try a punch across on this, especially at a high level. A few War Wednesdays back, I actually featured the Ravagers, and I even showed that I was using Ultron as a 5th or Shuri as a 5th for a handful of battles while we were waiting for Star-Lord T'Challa to even be released. In this one, it's Ravager Shuri versus a Wave1 Hybrid team with a bunch of Avengers. Really, the reason this works out so well is because of the reworks from the Ravager Stitcher and the Ravager Boomer. Health steals and turn meter steals, they work great, and Yondu was huge for me, and still is one of my larger characters on this team. So I really enjoyed this attack. I really like the Ravager reworks. I honestly wish I had more tech stuff to put into them. I would love to level them up, because in War they're a very fun offensive team and they have a lot of utility. In lieu of Star-Lord T'Challa, using Shuri was a very good match, because this was also before Wakanda was reworked, and Shuri was about the only player on the team that had any use outside of Chaos Theory. So Shuri as an extra healer just gave more longevity to this team, and it really was a match made in heaven, especially since it was a Band-Aid match. Next up, we've got a Red Skull Hydra, where the largest character is Red Skull himself. Now, as he has a lot of charges, he has a lot of defensive buffs and resistance and all of that kind of stuff, and dropping charges is when his armor starts to drop. So originally when he came out, there wasn't really a counter, and then it was the Inhumans that were released specifically with Black Bolt and his hard dead kills that would not allow anyone who was killed by him to be revived. That was the original counter for Red Skull Hydra. Now I had a large Black Bolt here. This is obviously long before I ever gear tier 16'd Black Bolt for my DD5 run, which is still upcoming. But even though I didn't have him at the highest power levels, he still possibly could have taken this team out on his own with his ultimate. So this is kind of a blast from the past matchup, and it still definitely works if you come across a large Red Skull Hydra in defense. Definitely look to use Black Bolt and Inhumans to take him out. Alright, next up we've got Ultroncree versus a Zemo Hydra team with Kingpin. Now this is the configuration I still have as my offensive team for Zemo in War. Zemo team with Kingpin. And this was my Ultroncree team, which still is my favorite War offense team, even though it's now broken up for A-Force. I have reluctantly put together an A-Force team and pulled Captain Marvel out of this team. I no longer have Ronan and Korath in here, so it's now kind of a split-up team, but this one worked out exactly as I wanted. My first hope was to get Korath's taunt up on Zemo, and try and wheel Ultimus around and take out Zemo before he took a turn. That's obviously folly because Zemo is one of the fastest characters in the game, but it worked out just fine because Crossbones taunted directly before my Ultimus ultimate came out, which means I was able to blow away Crossbones, and the rest was easy cleanup. So next up is Guardians of the Galaxy, and we all know they are the second worst team in War right now. The only one they're beating out right now is Hand. So what I ended up taking in here was a slightly lower Brotherhood 2.0. I didn't really have to worry too much about it. Groot does have a cleanse, so there is that possibility that he could get rid of all the blinds before I could take advantage of that or the rest of the team takes turns. But really, I was able to punch through Guardians of the Galaxy so fast that it really didn't matter. Brotherhood 2.0 has seen better days in this game. It's still somewhat relevant as long as you can throw Doom into it, but it's kind of fading in and out of obscurity, and it's no longer one of the meta teams that it once was. I'm really hoping if Guardians of the Galaxy 3 movie comes out in the next couple of years, they get a rework with a little bit of extra help. But until then, they've seen the best of their times. Next up is Power Armor versus Supernatural, and Supernatural, as you know, is now being broken apart for the Dark Hunters team, as well as the Dark Hold team. So this team no longer really holds together. There's not a lot that these teams are good for anymore. But back in the day, this was one of the strongest ones, especially if you had a ginormous Ghost Rider. And so that kind of scared me. That's why I punched down with Power Armor. I was hoping the ability as I had with Power Armor would be enough to wipe out the team quickly. The battle went sideways early. I lost Rescue before she could do a cleanse, and really kind of needed that cleanse, so it was very touch and go for a minute there. Fortunately, Falcon was able to give me enough speed to get War Machine around and blow away everything but Ghost Rider. And what scared me the most is it came down to Ghost Rider versus an almost dead Falcon and a not too healthy Iron Man, who we all know is actually the weakest one on the team. Iron Man did manage to finish this one off though, so it chalked up for another win. Very happy about that. If you see a Supernatural team now, don't go in with too much power. They're really not the meta that they once were. So at this point in the war, I haven't had anything all that challenging. I've still got a lot of really powerful tunes left, and I ran into a Heroes for Hire. So this is my chance to take out 2 in a war. So I used my Eternals, Kestrel, and Silver Surfer, as well as Zemo, to put together a 5-character holy cow team against Heroes for Hire. I basically threw the kitchen sink of what I had left at this Heroes for Hire, and what works about it is the Eternals is, even though their turn meter rewind ultimates are absolute money against any team that likes to use a lot of speed, if you have the Striker Skirmisher configuration of Icarus with Striker and Circe with Skirmisher, every time you use Icarus's basic, you actually get 5 taps on a tune. It's also very possible that because of Icarus's strength, if he manages to get a second tap, you could blow away an entire wave of Heroes for Hire. Potentially. You'd have to kill one of them first. If you have one weak hero and you manage to knock them out on Icarus's first tap of his ultimate, he could get a second tap, which usually allows you to knock out one wave of charges on one turn, which is gigantic. Plus you have the drain mechanics of the Eternals, and in this case I've also got Zemo, who, when he pops off his first turn, does as much as he possibly can to strip away positive effects, hopefully land an ability block. I have him as a blue level ISO 3 Skirmisher, just so he has that extra focus. And I've also got Kestrel, who every time she takes a turn, she heals. And I've got Silver Surfer, who every time anyone takes a turn, he heals. Plus, his ultimate can strip a charged. So the flexibility of all of these tunes going up against a Heroes for Hire, it's definitely got to be a big punch down in order to work. But it did manage to punch through a Heroes for Hire, a second one, in this war for my alliance, which back in the day when this was shot, Heroes for Hire was the premium team. So this worked out very, very well, especially as we were coming down the stretch run and we needed to clear a couple of rooms and give ourselves some breathing room against Brazucas. So next up, we're going up against a Captain Marvel and Minerva Kree team, where Captain Marvel and Minerva are the bulk of the collection power. Got 3 very, very small Kree support characters here, and so what I'm really not concerned about is them. What I'm actually concerned about is taking out Captain Marvel and making sure that if she does revive, I can take her out again very quickly. Either that, or I've got to blow away Minerva and then go for Captain Marvel, and I want to do it quickly. So, I use Shadowland, and that seems to be a great strategy. Alright, we're getting late in the war. These guys don't have a whole lot left in the tank, so I decided to take on a sub 200k Pymtek team with my own Pymtek team, which was almost twice the collection power. So this one didn't really last very long. The quick answer to this is you want to focus down on Ghost and Yellow Jacket. If you can get rid of both of those tunes, you really don't have much of a worry from the other 3. Wasp can be pesky if she's big, but not really the biggest focus here. Alright, we're on to the penultimate match, and all they've got left is a couple of shield junk teams, and I decided to take on the Rocket Raccoon Challenge. Yeah, this is pretty easy, and that's why I decided to take it on. Rocket's basic, is a splash damage thing, takes out 3 tunes, and if it happens to get back around to his ultimate, you can be sure that he'll take out whatever is left. Alright, shield is all that's left. We're getting really close to ending the war, and we wanted to take this last room out to make sure they had no breathing room left. So this was the Ebony Maw challenge. Ebony Maw versus shield defense. If it even comes around, Ebony Maw should easily be able to take this out with his health steal, and that's all it would take to knock this off. 2 quick notes here. Because of the collection power, I was able to go 14 for 14 in a war. I didn't realize that until the videos were all shot. I wasn't planning on doing a War Wednesday, but I did manage to set them all aside and bring them back for later. As always, thanks for watching and have a great day.